All right. Well, I guess it's that time again, isn't it?
Wait. 3, 2, 1. Now it's time.
Now it is. All right, here we go.
Let's see, what color am I feeling? I'm thinking orange today. Today seems like an orange kind of day.
Ooh. Every day is Orange Day, I guess.
Oh, self-defense against fresh fruit and your other favorite British comedies.
Oh, fresh fruit, huh?
Well, you said it's an orange kind of day.
Oh.
And on that note, play the theme song. Hi, I'm Charity.
And I'm Sara, and welcome to Bobbleheads on the Dash.
And this is the episode I have been waiting for. We have made multiple references to British comedies and England and just all things lovely about England. And so now we can actually talk about it. But first, before we get to all of the wonderful things on the table here, Sara, we want to take care of our housekeeping.
Yes, good old-fashioned housekeeping. So you've obviously found us on YouTube, so that's half the battle already. So you gotta do the usual. You like, subscribe, notification bell, I don't know, offerings of
your firstborn.
Yeah, for firstborn offerings. We're practically Rumpelstiltskin at this point. So, but of course we're available on all the other platforms. We are available on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at We Harmon Sisters. So you can't miss us. We're on the shirt. It's all the same all the way around the board.
And most importantly, let's not forget word of mouth. Now, I know social media is the thing, and it's the thing that we all have easy access to, but tell your friends. Just say a little something. That helps too. So any way you can get the word out to...
Yeah. There's 2 random girls on TV that are wearing some interesting hats talking about British stuff, so that actually would make us stand out. There's 2 Black Midwestern girls that is going to talk about British comedy. That's a very specific niche.
It is fun, though. I am excited about today's topic. Before we start, though, would you like to discuss what you're wearing on your head?
I do believe it is a hat.
On that note.
So long, everybody. So I'm wearing a top hat, and I've always wanted one since, I don't know, since I was single digits at least. So finally last Christmas at, Big Lots, R.I.P. Big Lots, they had 2 top hats. So Charity has one too.
I do have one, but I'm not wearing it today. We'll get to my headgear in a minute.
Yeah, so I guess, I'm trying to be a distinguished gentleman. At least from this side up.
You need a monocle. I feel like she needs a little...
I need a monocle
and a cane.
A bow tie or an ascot or something, and a really nice jacket of some sort.
If you came to our Harmons in Hollywood event last December, over at Tallgrass, we played Scrooge, a 1970 musical starring Albert Finney as Ebenezer Scrooge. Both of us wore our top hats to do the presentation before the movie began.
We also did it for the promo, so if you want to see us
we did the thank you very much dance. Which I will say, if anyone saw us downtown recording that, they're probably like, what are they doing? It makes sense in the final video, but yes, we got to sport our top hats, which was very, very fun.
Yeah. And so now that we've talked about my beautiful hat, what, pray tell, is on that head of yours?
Okay. First, what's on my head is a new hairstyle. I just got my hair braided. So I think every episode up till now, I've had my regular hair out. Yes. But now that the braids are in, we can officially declare that summer has begun because it's too hot to have my hair down. My hair is way too thick for that. So the braids are in and it's summer. But I have a feeling we weren't talking about my braids.
Yeah, so aside from what's attached to your scalp, yes. But what is on top of the braids? Okay,
so I will take this off and show everybody. This is my fascinating fascinator. Ooh, I had to make the joke. You knew it was coming.
Yeah, it's pretty predictable.
So this is something that, this is a headband, but you can also have like a little hat or little hairpiece. It's something that's worn for like the royal wedding or racing days or other formal type of events.
Yes.
And there's nothing more formal than a podcast episode.
That's true, especially this one in particular. This is a fascinating episode.
Oh, 2 in less than 30 seconds. Is that the last one of the night, or are we going to try to stick one?
We'll have plenty more. The day's still young. So since Charity was talking about Scrooge, now I will say that wasn't my first introduction to like British entertainment. If you haven't seen that, please do. It's a great. It's a family.
Yeah, we watch it every Christmas.
Yeah, usually 2 or 3 times, depending on how much we're able to squeeze it in before Christmas. So we can quote the whole thing 100%. But now that might have been my introduction to being aware of, like as a child, I was like, oh, they sound different. You know, they have a different accent. But I think, and like I said, if I want to be specific, I could say my introduction to like British was probably Laurel and Hardy, just because Stan Laurel was English. Maybe that might be a bit borderline, but when I was a toddler, my mom and I used to watch Graham Kerr.
We're going way back.
We're going way back, and he was a very entertaining cook.
And that used to play on PBS, and I think right after Two Fat Ladies would come on. Which is the title of the show. I wasn't making fun of anybody.
Graham Kerr. I don't know if Graham Kerr played on PBS. It was on some local channel at the time, but
Julia Child used to come on.
Julia Child,
on her show. But
I mean, she's not English, but
I think like PBS had a series of those type of cooking shows. But I know Two Fat Ladies was also a British.
Yeah, that was a fun show too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I've always been introduced to either British people or cooking, and then a combination of the two somehow. But that was kind of from what I remember, I think that was one of my very, very early instances with watching something British. Like I said, I don't think I really knew at the time, but in retrospect.
So I actually have 2 things. I think my first introduction into knowing that England actually exists was Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't seen that movie, Charlie Brown, Lioness, Peppermint Patty, and Marcy are part of the foreign exchange student program. So the 4 of them travel to France. But somewhere between Peanuts Land and France, they make a stopover in London, England. And so you get to see, which they animated it very well, you get to see some of the buildings, some of the architecture, but then you see them go on a double-decker bus. Mm-hmm. You see them go on one of the black taxi cabs, so you see the driver on the other side. They have lunch in a pub, and then Snoopy makes just a brief stopover in Wimbledon.
As Beagles do.
Yeah, plays a bit of tennis. So I think, that was one of my favorite movies growing up. But I think my first time probably hearing a British accent, now this is going to go back, we used to watch it's old Winnie the Pooh shows, and it wasn't a cartoon, so all the Pooh Bear characters, they were in costume. So the host would open the book and read the story, and as he's reading the story, you would see the characters played out in front of you, but they were all in costume, which that's like a cherished memory for me, because I love those shows. Some people have said that they're very creepy, but I love them. See,
I never got that vibe at all.
Yeah, no, I thought they were cute.
I felt like Hollywood and other places have done a good job in making it scary, so that way whenever you associate with that, you get that. But on the whole, I always thought they were really cute.
Yeah. So that's probably my first time actually hearing a British accent. That's probably one of my earliest memories.
If that's the case, maybe that was too, because I watched these things way before my 2 sisters were here, so that's so maybe Winnie the Pooh and Graham Kerr, 2 very different ways to be introduced to British things, but I forgot about that until you brought that up.
Yeah, so introduction to England. But we fast forward a little bit, and now we're here in the world of British comedy. And as you can see before us, we have a few different things. This is the fun part about doing a video, because our first podcast was all audio. But doing video, we can kind of showcase some of the stuff that we have. And I think that brings nice little pictures to things. In our previous episode, we were discussing pairing classic movie actors with current actors who are still living. And in that episode, we made a lot of British references. So we wanted to kind of put faces to the people that we mentioned. One of the people that we mentioned was Ernie Wise. So do you want to show who that is, and then why is this person important to you?
Why, yes, I will show you who Ernie
Why are you saying that like you're reading a teleprompter? Yes, I will show you.
Yes, I will. Bring up object. So actually, on top of showing you Ernie Wise, I will also show you Eric Morecambe. So, but the duo is actually called Morecambe and Wise. So Eric Morecambe is the guy with the glasses, so you can't miss him. And then then we have little Ernie Wise on the other side. And so, kind of like we were talking about last week, they were a really funny duo, very well beloved. You can kind of understand why if you were to like watch some of their stuff. But good old Ernie Wise, there was a lot of cheap jokes at his expense for his height and also the implication that he might be wearing a toupee. But I like the two of them together. They're a really great duo. My first introduction to them was when I was in college. I was kind of introduced to them at a time when I really needed a good laugh. I was really connected to the humor. Like, they would say something or they would do something, and I'm like, I was hoping they would do that before I saw it. You were
anticipating the punchline.
Yeah, and I was like, in my mind, I would say it in a certain way, and they would, and I'm like, oh my goodness, They're
reading my mind.
Yeah, it's like, I think I have their sense of humor. And so I took the few little dollars that I was making when I was in college and was buying the DVD, just because at the time YouTube didn't have that much, and I really had to get that fixed. But on top of that, I've also read their autobiography. So Eric and Ernie by Morecambe and Wise. And it's really fun. It's been a while since I've read an autobiography, but this was a really fun read. Also, it's kind of written, because I believe they probably recorded them speaking, so it's kind of written as if you're transcribing it from a recording of themselves.
And explain the front and back cover and the popular stance that is very well known for Morecambe and Wise.
So if you look at the front, they're doing this nice little dance here. Then on the back, you get to see them from the back, just in case you're not quite sure what they're doing from the back. But this is a little entrance that they would do. They would do this ending song called Bring Me Sunshine. Such a beautiful song. Listen to it. Apparently it's attributed to Groucho Marx. So I believe it's Animal Crackers. Groucho Marx had a character called Captain Spaulding, and he would do all these little dances and stuff. This little leg kick or whatever. So their little dance is almost kind of like a modified version of kind of like what Groucho Marx did, at least based on what I had read. When you watch something or read something and you just feel like that instant connection, I feel like I got that with Morecambe and Wise. So, now I've gotten that out the way, because I can spend hours on this, but we'll go ahead and talk about...
She really could, and I'm going to spare you from that. In the previous episode, we also mentioned Ronnie Corbett.
Yes.
Which leads us to the two Ronnies. Now, of the duos, Sarah's introduced me to a lot of different duos that kind of have like a variety show. Think of like the Carol Burnett show, like that type of humor where there's like musical performances and comedy and sketches and stuff. And I do like Morecambe and Wise. I appreciate their humor. I personally thought the two Ronnies, they have brought me to tears. Like, I have laughed so hard that, I cried. And so, anyway, this is the two Ronnies. This is Ronnie Barker. This is Ronnie Corbett, who we mentioned in the previous episode. Mm-hmm. And Ronnie, we forgot to look up how tall they were.
Well, I think Ronnie Corbett was about 5 foot, which is very short.
So I'm taller than Ronnie Corbett.
Yeah. Basically, that's how tall our mom is. So basically, it shows how short he was.
A mom-sized British comedian. How cute, coochie coochie coo.
Okay.
Okay. That was unplanned.
Yes, it was.
So I love the two Ronnies. And we specifically mentioned Ronnie Corbett. But my favorite sketch that I first saw actually doesn't really have Ronnie Corbett. It features Ronnie Barker. But go on YouTube, and hopefully it's still up, but look up A Round of Drinks from the two Ronnies. And this sketch is very formulaic. Like, you kind of already know what's going to happen, but it's fun to watch it play out. Yeah. So, long story short, they're at this party. Ronnie Barker goes up to the bartender, and he's in charge of getting all the drinks for all of the guests at the party behind him. But meanwhile, while he's trying to get those drinks, the bartender keeps giving him his drink order. So he keeps drinking. He keeps getting a little bit drunk. His words are getting mixed up, and, he's seeing double and all that. Anyway, by the end, you'll see, I'm not going to say it, you'll see what drinks he brings out to serve to the guests. And so when I first saw that, I just thought it was hilarious. Like I said, I already knew what was going to happen, but it was fun to watch it play out. Another favorite sketch I have is the halitosis sketch. I guess that's what it's called, Bad Breath or whatever. And look that up. Hopefully that's on YouTube as well. But anyway, Ronnie Corbett, his character has really bad breath, and he is talking to Ronnie Barker, and Ronnie Barker doesn't want to tell him that his breath smells bad. He's trying to be polite or whatever. But one of my favorite lines from that episode is, I think he pretends he has like a back injury or something. He's like, oh no, don't worry about it. What I like to do to relieve myself of the pain is I turn my head like this. And Ronnie Corbett's standing right here. He's like, I turn my head like this and I just hold my breath.
It is very funny.
I mean, they're making funny faces too. You have to go see it, so hopefully it's on YouTube.
What I like about Two Ronnies is that they didn't necessarily kind of put themselves in that kind of box. Aside from a box set, because we think of the same thing.
Why are we the same? Why do we do that?
Tune in again next time for us to answer that question. But what I like is that depending on the sketch, one could be the comic, one could be the straight, and then it could be reversed depending on the sketch. So I like the fact that they can each play both sides.
I think their most famous routine is the Four Candles.
Four Candles, yes.
Sketch. So if you don't watch anything else, look that up. And I'm not even going to say anything more. Just look it up. That's probably their most famous routine. It
is really good. But yeah, and then Ronnie Corbett was really good at like engaging with the audience. So there was a segment where he would just sit. It would just be him sitting in a chair, spotlight, nothing else, and he's just monologuing to the audience. And I always enjoy that. I like it when people can engage the audience and they just get a big kick out of it.
It's more personal, more conversational, more intimate. I will say, not to, I know we're talking about British, but not to reference Ireland here, but one of Sarah's favorites is Dave Allen.
Yes.
And he would do that too. He would do sketches and stuff in between, but he also had a sit in a chair, talk to the audience segment.
Yeah. Dave Allen at Large. So check.
And that is on YouTube because we have recently watched some of those.
Oh goodness! See this
Dave Allen, the Robert Fuller lookalike. Which
Robert
Fuller. We first saw Robert Fuller in Emergency, show about hospital and paramedics in the 70s, and then I later saw him in Wagon Train and Laramie, two westerns. So put a picture of Robert Fuller next to Dave Allen, and then you'll see how much they look alike.
Another actor that actually Charity brought it up in the same episode we're talking about is Rob Brydon.
Oh yeah.
He was and still is a host of a very funny panel/game show, however you want to call it, called Would I Lie to You? If you haven't watched Would I Lie to You, it's a simple premise. Is it a true story or is it a lie? And as funny as that, sometimes the most outlandish stories seem to be true, and then the most logical stories seem to be a lie. It's kind of interesting how that works.
Look up, I accidentally bought a horse. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anything else, but that is my favorite story.
Yeah, there's great banter in between the two team members. So one team member is David Mitchell, then you have Lee Mack. That's just a great, ridiculous, fun show. And it's been on the air for like almost 20 years.
I got this for Christmas last year. It's a notepad that I keep at my desk for editing. I jot down different notes and stuff. But how cute! It's a little Fawlty Towers stationery, as if I got it from the hotel, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So I started watching British comedies pretty heavily around when I first started going to college. There's something about college that brings out this strange humor between the Harmon women, I guess. But I love Fawlty Towers simply because I have had multiple jobs in customer service. And so when you're dealing with people, you very often have thoughts that you don't say out loud because you'll get fired. But with Basil Fawlty, he owns the hotel, so like he kind of just speaks his mind and says what he wants. He says what we're all thinking anyway. One of my favorite episodes is The Kipper and the Corpse.
Yep, that's my favorite. That was actually the first episode I ever watched.
And this is hilarious just because, I'm probably going to spoil it. But anyway, a guy checks into the hotel and then he dies overnight. So basically the whole episode is the staff of Fawlty Towers trying to figure out how do we get rid of this dead body without alarming the guests, without people seeing them, So they're hiding him in places, and people are coming to the hallway, and and it's funny too, because a dead person's just dead weight, so the person's heavy, so he's kind of flopping everywhere. So I would for sure watch this episode.
Gotta talk about Cannon and Ball. I think I've mentioned Cannon and Ball a few times. But anyway, I decided to bring their film called The Boys in Blue. So it's just again, I'm also big in like buddy film kind of thing. So in this case, Tommy Cannon, who's the guy at the top here, and then Bobby Ball at the bottom, they're pretty much inept policemen that end up finding themselves on a real case they gotta solve. That's pretty much the premise of it, and then whatever hijinks ensue along the way.
Which does seem like a Laurel and Hardy setup, because there was an episode where they were policemen.
Yes, actually a couple, yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course, the worst you could probably ask for, but it makes for good.
And Three Stooges
movies.
too.
And Three Stooges.
They were.
I feel like in some way you got to pull in law enforcement. And you just got to see how bad. I mean, you got the Keystone Cops. You know, they're the ones that kind of put them on the map. So, but I decided to bring the film version of The Boys in Blue, so to bring in my 500 Morgan Wives and
if we brought out every box set that Sarah owns, there would be no room on the table.
It's true. Now for Cannonball, I've known about them for a little bit, but I really, really binge watched them during lockdown. So they were one of my lockdown discoveries. And I had mentioned in Honeycomb Pipes, I think that was episode 5, I follow Tommy Cannon on social media, but he also follows me too, which is pretty awesome. And we've interacted off and on.
Oh, he might be watching this. Hi,
Tommy! Hi, Tommy! That's true. Okay, side note, I do feel a little bit nervous sometimes when I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna like tag somebody famous on our videos.
I think they would be flattered that we're talking about them, that two random girls here in the Midwest are like really excited about something that they did back in 1970 whatever.
Yeah, and Tommy is still performing, so that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Still going strong. So I think they're very funny. Rock on, Tommy. Gotta get that one in there. So I'll just keep that there. But I really like some really funny double acts.
This one's a little more modern. Miranda, which I started watching this, I think this was after college. The show started in 2009, and at that point I didn't have access to TV or internet at the time because, poor student, didn't have any access to that. But I love this show, and I think every generation has a sort of coming of age show, or a show where you're trying to figure out life on your own, you're trying to figure out relationships, figure out your place in the world, and Miranda does a good job of showing some of the awkward moments of what it could be like to be single or to try to get in a relationship, or some of the awkward moments that happen at work or with your friends, or, something awkward your mother says, So if you haven't seen this show, I would highly recommend it. I love Miranda, would love to meet her one day. She just seems like a genuinely lovely person.
I think so too. She definitely does.
And for those of you that know Tom Ellis, if you don't watch Miranda, you might recognize him from Lucifer.
Yes.
So in case you don't know, I don't follow her. Miranda's written a couple different books, but this kind of goes along with the premise of the show. And is it just me? And then she talks about some of the awkward moments she had growing up. And it kind of just makes you feel like you're not alone, because everybody's had those awkward moments, whether you were like awkward teenager or weird, things that happen in college. And so knowing that there's other people that are just as weird as you are, it's kind of comforting. So I absolutely love Miranda and her series. This is a comfort show. I've definitely watched it multiple times over.
And in kind of transitioning, just Tara's talking about like a really good cast, a good ensemble. Okay, like I said, the ones I'm giving you, these things are already very English. But if you ever heard of the Carry On cast, so I can get this without dropping the other one too. So this is a set called Carry On Laughing. Now, this is an ensemble cast. There's usually like, I don't know, it's like a group of 10, 12 actors that did a series of films. I believe they did, 13 movies, 15 movies, from like the late 1950s into I think the early 1990s. They did a whole bunch of films, but I randomly came across this at our local library, which I in retrospect I realized how random this is. I'm like, what Wichitan was watching Carry On Laughing? Or maybe there was an English guy that lived in Kansas or lived in Wichita and donated to the library. Because I'm like, this is very, very English for even Midwest America. But anyway, Carry On Laughing was a TV series. It was just basically, I guess it was, each episode is like its own story, like a almost sitcom style, maybe like comedy sketch style. But it's just an ensemble cast. And like I said, they were also part of a movie series. And what I like about their movies is that it's carrying on something. So like,
if you see my
Charity's
my social media handles, it's Carry On Charity. If you've ever wondered where that came from, it came from this series. Yeah.
It kind of works out too. So it's always Carry On Camping or whatever the situation is, but it's very zany, very English, all the innuendos and double entendres you can think of. So this DVD is called Beyond the Fringe. And I talk about double acts a lot because Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, they became a double act. So we have Jonathan Miller, like I said, I mentioned Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, and then Alan Bennett at the bottom here. I've always wanted to do comedy in terms of performing, writing, all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, it wasn't until I watched Beyond the Fringe where I was like, I think I can do that. Or I can do a form of that. Same thing with like watching Workham and Wise and all them. For some reason, I don't know why, watching the British comedy gave me the confidence that I could do this myself, which I didn't fully feel doing, watching American comedies. I'm not quite sure if there's a connection to that, but I just thought that was interesting.
I think it's the age, I mean, we started watching a lot of the regular shows, movies, comedies, pretty much
most of our
since like being a toddler. The interest in comedy was built based on all the things we watched growing up, like Three Stooges, Marx Brothers, Laurel and Hardy. But then this was something after that interest has already been created. It's like, oh, okay, now I see how this can happen. Especially like you said with Morecambe and Wise, you were predicting the punchline before they even said it. So I'm going to end the discussion with this cup. Now, you're probably staring at this cup. We've got all these DVDs and books and stuff here, and you're like, what the heck is this cup? And in our time of, talking about movies and TV shows and things that we like, it's always fun when we get to meet the people that we've either watched growing up or who are still currently acting. This little cup is signed by Ian McNeice. And if you know that name, you probably have seen Doc Martin, which is where I first saw him, but he's done so many other things. We were still working at a local TV station here in town, and Ian McNeice came and they did a high tea event. And during that, he came and he spoke and kind of told some behind-the-scenes stories about Doc Martin and, just explained about his experience working on the show for so many years. And then they had these little disposable cups, so afterwards, everyone went and they got their cup signed. So Sarah has one too, but I brought mine out for the display here. So it was really cool to meet him, to hear those stories, and this kind of rounds out only some. We've only hit the tip of the iceberg here of our love of all things British comedies, British culture. So on that note, saying farewell from Charity, Sarah, and Dawson. And okay, slight note. So I named this bird Dawson. There's an episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show called Racy Tracy Radigan, where Richard Dawson plays this comedian that is flirting with Laura and whatnot. But when he comes in, and the bird's shirt says, "Hello, love." When he comes in, he goes, "Hello, lovies." And like that, I always laugh. That's like one of my favorite lines of that episode, and it just makes me giggle. So when I saw this, first of all, I had to have it. But when I saw it, I was like, I should name that after Richard Dawson.
I guess you got to do your token Cockney-ish accent for the show.
At least we didn't do the whole episode in accent, because that would have just been super cringe.
Yeah.
Beyond the cringe, right?
Oh, there we go.
So on that note, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from her.